If you're looking for an options trading coach, you might be wondering, well, how often should I meet with a coach? And there's a lot of different programs out there. I'll just kind of share with you some insight as far as the way I do things and the way I've seen things done from what works and kind of what doesn't. So to kick things off, there's kind of a couple of different types of coaching that you could get. And I'm talking about one-on-one hyper personalized coaching. There's also group coaching, but that's a little bit different. And I'll be talking more specifically about them one-on-one individual private coaching in this session. And you can see how it applies a little bit more to group sessions as well. So in my approach, it's kind of, there's like a shorter duration of one session on and off, or a 60-day mentoring, 90 days, 6 months, even a full year that I've worked with people. So anything longer term. So with the shorter sessions, what happens is well, if you're doing like a single session, it's just kind of like a meet up right now, one, and then it's kind of done. Okay. Now, sometimes these single sessions could be like a 2 or 3 sessions. Like sometimes I do an intensive where it's kind of like a 5-day thing. Well, what we're doing is we're meeting up Monday through Friday, and then it's kind of done. Okay. So it's Monday through Friday, and then you're doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then you're done. And those sessions last, about 45 minutes to an hour and a half, and you're on your way. So it's kind of more like consulting, I would say. Now, when you get into more mentoring, which is the way I do it, is we learn through examples, and the more examples you put on, the better off you are, because the more scenarios you see, you'll just absorb and digest things, and we talk about each one of those scenarios with time. Now, when we do a mentoring program, what happens is let's say, and we'll just talk about kind of like a 90-day time frame here. So this 90-day time frame or longer kind of is going to be different. And I find what happens is at the beginning stages, okay, so at the beginning, and we'll look at the length of the meetups. At the beginning stages here, you actually need frequent meetups and longer meetups. So we'll look at kind of this as being the length. You kind of actually need frequent meetups and longer. And that is because you're kind of new and you're stumbling on your feet. So I try to meet up, every 2 to 4 days, actually in this first cycle or this first part, just to get people, into the routine, the habit. Because what you're really doing is you're changing a habit and transforming people's normal way of doing things into something different. And if you have something that's meeting up like you might have seen group coaching, and I've ran into people that I've talked to that do group coaching, it might be like once a week. That's fine, but it's usually not coaching. It's usually like group coaching is actually disguised as like a webinar, and you're just listening to somebody else, and it's not necessarily group coaching. So what normally you want to do is at the beginning, you actually want to meet up frequently, and they're going to be longer sessions, because what you're covering in this beginning stage, really what's going on is it's more along the lines of new knowledge. And then on top of the new knowledge and information, you're also changing those habits. So there's a lot of changes happening from the brain to the way that you're also doing things in a habitual way. Now, later on, what happens is that as you get into the next stage, you actually need a little bit less, shall we say, kind of in terms of time or duration of meetups. So what's happening is that the length of time might still be the same in terms of, let's say, this over here is about a 45-minute to 80-minute session. Okay. Now, what's going to happen is the same thing over here is you still might do about a 45 to an 80-minute session, but you're not going for, like every 4 or 5 days. What might actually happen is you might go, every 5 to 7 days. And that is similar to now what you're doing is, instead of building habits, what we're trying to now do is you're looking at more along the lines of, okay, we're looking for double checking that you can do things on your own. So what you're doing is kind of more reassurance or verifying that things look good and okay, that you're able to handle kind of the positions and trades a little more on your own. Now, you still adding in lessons here and there. And that's why the session's length still, 45 to 80 minutes. Usually about 60 minutes, 45 is kind of average. But you're kind of more, not so much knowledge, but you're adding a new thing. So as your progression in learning, you're kind of adding a new thing in these stages rather than at the beginning. It's like a lot of new stuff. And then as we get into the next, call it the third of the duration, you're actually getting, you're spreading your time or meetups a little bit more so. And what's happening here is you're really fine tuning what you're doing. And this might be tweaking a strategy rather than verifying and checking every example. Like at the beginning, you're checking maybe all 6 examples or scenarios. And over here, you might check 2 to 3. And over here, you might look at, well, how do I fine tune things for the portfolio? How do I manage the risk or hedge off this problem? So it's a lot more fine tuning. And these sessions actually last maybe more along the lines of, it could be 20 minutes long. And you actually might go back instead of every 7 days. You actually might go back to more like a 5-day rotation or even a 4-day rotation, but you're doing shorter meetups to just double check and fine tune again. And really, I find this kind of works really well to ease people into trading on their own. Because, a linear approach in terms of going in and saying, okay, well, we meet up weekly, which is what I've seen from some coaching programs that people tell me about. Let's say you meet up every 7 days. So now you got 7, 14, 21. The issue with that, what happens and what people tell me is that maybe you have a trade going on here that you have questions about or over here, but now you're not meeting up for a little while. And that's a little bit of the downside. So what you want to really do is get a little bit more comfort level going at different stages of your learning journey and slowly kind of release yourself to be able to handle the trades on your own. And by doing something like this with this approach, it really helps. So as far as meeting up with your coach, I'd say this is kind of a nice staggered where you need a lot more help at the beginning. And then later on, it's kind of weaving down and down and down, and then kind of less help and just checking in. And that's really what's happening, is that at the beginning stages, you kind of have a lot more help. And then later, a little less attention, but then the frequency over here becomes a little more solid, whereas the frequency over here is also solid. But what's happening is here it's more knowledge-based. And then over here, you're doing just more like a check-in, reassurance stage. So that's kind of what's happening, going on. So anyways, I hope that helps, gives you a little insight as far as, the frequency of meetups and what I find works best. If you do something kind of on a, call it a routine basis when it comes to trading or learning, it doesn't work as well just because sometimes those questions will pop into your head and you're not ready you're not ready for it in terms of, hey, I need the answer, but now 3 or 4 days has to go by until my next meeting. Yes, that's good from a schedule basis, but from a learning basis, it's not always the best. So looking at it from a learning perspective, I find that this approach works probably better than anything I've used in the past. And I've tried things where it's, hey, every 7 days we meet up, or every 5 days we meet up. I find it just, you tweak it based on where the person is, tends to work the best. And again, this is more for, call it the ideal learning situation or environment. It's not for group coaching. I'm talking about one-on-one. But you can see how with group coaching, it can apply fine as well if the group is structured correctly, meaning like you have a lot of good meetups at the beginning and then, weave that down a little bit more in the core and then just doing some quick check-ins, later towards the end of the group sessions. Anyways, hope that helps, gives you a little insight, and I will see you next time. Take care.